it'll be okay.
Okay. And
Yeah,
now
thanks.
they're going to give me. I'm waiting for everybody to accept the stream. Twitch has
Right,
accepted the
right.
stream.
So there's the three. This is what I said: Twitch,
YouTube has accepted the
YouTube,
stream.
and
Waiting for
Facebook.
Facebook to accept the stream. Facebook has accepted the stream. Now they're going to give me the link, and I'm going to send it to the whole email list. You know what I mean by that, Vicky?
I know what you mean by that. I was hoping you were gonna text it to me, but
Oh, you just
yeah.
want to? You just want to be the only one? Because a
I
minute
don't
ago you
mind,
said
but
send it to everybody.
no, but I thought you do that after the show because right now we're just starting. But
So
because I don't think people are
what do
gonna.
you want it? Texted or emailed?
You can text it.
Okay.
You can text it. Thanks. Yeah, that was just an idea so that if you wanted people to have it, because I just thought right now we have enough to do to get going. I don't want it. Then people are trying to put things on their Facebook, and then will be another 10 minutes. Yeah, that's all. Okay. It's good to see you back there. Thanks for coming.
Are you still involved with Stop the Violence?
Somewhat. I mean, I haven't been to a meeting in a while, so
Yeah.
I'm overdue.
Vicky, I've just sent you the link.
Wonderful. But I certainly am all in favor, and there's different things that they've been doing, or that I like to help out with. I've just talked with different people about with the peacemakers, some of the peacemakers. So, to be continued. Okay, here. Okay, so I think we are rolling.
Okay. You see the number 5 on the screen?
Yep.
When it says on the air, you're on the air, okay?
Okay, so just so you all know, we'll stop, around 58 minutes, right? But I'll rein it back in at the end and be thanking people, and that'll be the end. So,
Okay, you got the clapper?
yeah.
All right, here we go.
Okay, thanks. Welcome to Talking Peace with the Western New York Peace Center, being recorded here at Think Twice Radio in the home of the future, also the home of our friend and producer, Richard Wicca. Thanks, Richard. And we thank our friends at WBNY, Buff State's original alternative radio station. We're grateful to Buff State for all kinds of things, and including the radio station, 91.3 FM. When I think of thankfulness, I think of our Haudenosaunee brothers and sisters and how much they've suffered. I think of the way they, in spite of their land being stolen or taken through trickery and everything else, and we're on unceded Haudenosaunee land right now, but I think about how they start everything off with thankfulness, and also enslaved people who've been enslaved and brought here to this country. Still, thankfulness, gratefulness is such a big piece of helping us deal with this crazy world we're in. So and when they start with thankfulness, they really thank Mother Earth and thankful for all of the plants and animals, the wonderful features of beauty in our whole world, and the Creator and all the love that is what has created this creation, and all the love we need to have for each other and for this world. So when I think of gratefulness, I'm thinking too of I'm very grateful for our guests tonight who've come for a very important topic. Our topic is how to help our children deal with bigotry. So it's something we all have to do, and we all are responsible to help with. I'll go around the circle, and I'd say first we have Michal Lewis, who is here, who is a mom, who is part of the Jewish community here in Buffalo. Welcome, Michal. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me.
And Barbara Sozen, who is also a mother and who is part of the Muslim community here in Buffalo.
Thank
Thank-
you.
thank-
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Barbara. And last but not least, Melissa Howell is a longtime friend. I'm all grateful for all of our friends who've come. And Melissa, as a black woman, is a mom, is a member of the community, has been a wonderful community activist and helper. So thank you for coming.
My pleasure.
Thanks, Melissa. So what we usually do is start by going around and just talking about, the values that we associate with this topic. So this topic, which is a very charged topic, because there's nothing, I always think of this as a non-mother, that people say that being a mother, and being a parent, I suppose, being a mother means always having your heart walking around outside of your body. So I know it is very intense for people, and so it's a big need and also a big lot of emotion that comes with this topic. So especially in these fraught times, which are just so hard. So if we can just go around and each of you can just share a value or a couple of values that you think of in relation to this topic. So Michal?
Well, a very. I try to think that I raise my daughters to be respectful
Mm-hmm.
and to be honest and show compassion towards other people. So I think this is very important to me. These are the values that I was brought up on as well.
So respect and compassion.
Yes, absolutely.
Absolutely, absolutely. So beautiful, so vital they are. And Barbara?
Yeah, I mean, I agree definitely. I think also understanding and that goes hand in hand with being respectful because you know even if you cannot understand, you can the least you can do is be respectful to everyone. We don't always have to all agree on everything always, but just being patient and understanding with everyone and treating everyone with dignity is very important. So
Right, that
Yeah.
patience and understanding. So we work for understanding, and maybe patience and listening is part of
yeah.
that. So that's so well put. Thank you to Barbara. And Melissa?
Well, it sounds like we all grew up in the same household.
Oh, good.
So I would have to say the same ditto, along with honesty. I think the covering is respect for one another, compassion and kindness, and just making sure that we treat others how we want to be treated, with the same respect, listening, kindness, helping one another, being there for that person who may be going through whatever, and just
Right.
walking them through whatever their challenges are, and that we hope that once, if we ever get there to that spot where we have someone to encourage us as well.
So that's so big. And I love that you put honesty in there, because usually the same one, I almost always use the same ones, because I think of this truth and love. I think of when Reverend Dr. King said, I believe that unarmed truth and unconditional love will have the final word in reality. So truth is in there now, and also truth is not a simple thing. Sometimes it is, but many times it isn't. And that honesty and that, the other thing when you said listening, I always think of, we have Camp Peace Princes going on right now for the Western New York Peace Center, and so I was just there and saw the Children's Peace Agreement, and I always think about that truth and love are in there. The kindness. Their first thing was kindness. The first thing on their peace agreement, which usually it's respect, but this time it was kindness. So I think that's big. And anyway, and the other thing I was going to say is about listening, is that in a lot of times when we talk about the Chinese character for listening, the Chinese character for listening has your eyes, your ears, your undivided attention, you, and your heart. So that open-hearted listening, and actually the two of you, Barbara and Michal, you were in a listening circle, and I think people really did that, and it's hard on some of our topics. It's very hard. So I think we have lots of great values that will help us on our way. So why don't we start with, how do we deal with bigotry? How do we deal, with bigotry, in our lives, or when we see it, when we receive it, when we see it happening around us, or just, some different tools that we might use to deal with it. So, Michal?
Want me to start?
What?
Do you want me to start?
Yeah, well, because we're doing a talking circle.
Yeah,
So we're
that
going
was a
around the
circle.
circle, and I chose the circle that is present in the room and not the circle that's on the video screen. So because, so we're here. But so
Okay.
if you want to wait and go last, we could
No,
do
it's-
that.
I can
Uh,
start. I have an idea.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so we'll go that way.
Sure.
Yeah,
So,
go ahead.
I think one thing that helps me if I ever experience it or see bigotry happening is I try to remind myself that I don't know what that person who is being a bigot is going through. So I don't know their background. I don't know their upbringing. I don't know what kind of parents they had. I don't know what news channel they watch, or anything they're watching, on any social media. It's probably not what I'm watching. I don't know what they went through, as a child or as a young adult or as an adult. The list goes on. So I try to remind myself that, the phrase "hurt people hurt people."
Right.
So when I see someone hurting someone, I try to remind myself that most likely that is a hurt person. And so then, that kind of makes me take a step back, and I feel bad for that person that they have to spew this hate or whatever it is, inability to get feedback or any, they don't even try to understand the other person. Then I think, okay, well, I feel bad for them. I'm like, well, they got problems. And then, it kind of stops there. You can do things to help or whatever, but I just, if I remember that I don't know where these people are coming from, and I don't know what they experience at home with their
Right.
spouses or with their kids or with their parents or whatever that makes them or has made them be like this. I just feel bad for them, and then it makes my blood pressure kind of goes down, and then I can
Right.
kind of work with it or move on or ignore it or do my best to stop it. But that's something I try to do.
Right.
When I
Oh,
see
that's
it.
so good.
So.
Yes, that's wonderful. Wonderful way of coping with it, dealing with it, and or thinking about it. So actually, that hurt people is a motto that was used in a campaign that Melissa and I worked on with Stop the Violence. So anyway, so Melissa.
Well, I would say first, let me ask you this question.
Sure.
What is the title of this program?
How we can help. How do we help?
No, I mean the radio show.
Oh, Talking Peace
Okay.
with the Western New York Peace Center.
Okay.
Yeah.
So talking, you know, also comes with listening.
Mm-hmm.
So just like she gave the example of when you see someone, being belligerent and,
Mm-hmm.
showing that bigotry through their acts or either their, verbal words that they're spewing out to whomever. Sometimes you just have to, like she said, stop, listen, look at the situation, try to get an understanding of what could possibly have just recently happened in their life, that traumatic experience. Was this something that was taught over the years as a child growing up?
Mm-hmm.
So those are factors that we have to look at before we react and before we even go and start, trying to converse with that person and try to really basically find out where that pain is coming from, because that's what it is.
Right.
It's pain somewhere that subsided somewhere in the bloodline or something, like I said, that could have just recently happened, a
Sure.
traumatic experience. So we have to come with the listening skills, understanding that pain, and also learning how to approach it, you know.
Right.
So that's very important when you're dealing with someone who has a lot of anger.
Right.
And that's basically what it is. It's a lot of anger towards another.
Right.
That's what bigotry is. And
Right.
sometimes they don't even realize, you know,
Right.
what they're experiencing, and they might, in their mind, they might not even acknowledge that they're a bigot until someone shows them. But once again, they have to be, approached gently,
Right.
you know.
Right. So between what you said about the way of understanding, the hurt and pain and the listening that we need to do, and sometimes it's anger, and that anger can be displaced anger, or it can be coming from fear.
Correct.
A lot of times fear is such a big generator of all these problems, because fear is the fuel, and fear, people go into fight, flight, freeze, so the whole alert system is up, and sometimes that's where anger can come up very much. I think of one time when we were on a march, and I won't get into the specifics, but there was we had different pieces where we were coming together at one place, over, from Ithaca, Utica, and Rochester. So we're meeting in the middle there. So when we got to the middle, there's one guy who was only by himself on his leg of the march, and there had been some people who said they were going to stop us or something. And here he is, this guy who was going to be the person who wanted to stop. He's just talking away, and this friend of ours is just listening. He's just listening to him. So all the feelings are coming out, and as he listened to him, it starts to come down.
Yes.
And all that listening that allowed the pain to subside, the anger to subside, the reasonableness and the humanity, the kindness, because he showed him the kindness of just listening to him. And didn't have his fear activated too.
Right.
So
right.
that was another piece of it. So
Right. Because sometimes you have to let them vent. And
Right.
sometimes when they vent, they get exhausted.
right,
Because
exactly.
they know that they have so much built up in them. So once they release that, they're exhausted.
Right.
And they can't say anything else, or they're going to start repeating the same thing over again. So sometimes you have to let them exhaust themselves before they're open to listening to other ways to approach
Right.
situations.
Right. So true. And Michal?
I think I respect everything that you said, and I can. The only the thing that I was thinking about is it also. I think it depends a lot on the situation.
Sure, of
Um,
course.
I wish we had more dialogue with people.
Mm-hmm.
I love the listening circles, by the way, because it gave me a chance to sit with other people from different walks of life, and maybe some people that I would otherwise be in a different group, right? Like sometimes
Right.
people group us, so
Right, right.
I think this in-person contact is very important, but unfortunately these days it happens a lot online and on social media, and then you feel like you're blocked. There's no one you can talk
Right.
to. People either
Right.
block you or they feel like they can just say whatever they want to say. I mean, we probably all know that. We read the comments of people, and it can be very hurtful.
Right.
So, and I think I agree to what you said. Like, and to like, it's not my fault. I didn't do anything.
Right.
Just like this person is venting.
Mm-hmm.
If this was in person and it's not a threatening situation,
Right.
I will agree. Like, okay, like, why do you think this way? I'm really interested. I'm very curious to know why you think this way. And if you choose to share it with me, right? I'd love to interject. I'd love to ask you some questions, not to say what I think, because I think that when someone feels like they know what's the right thing, they're not open to listen. So I would ask questions before I say what I think. And this is only my wish that we can have more dialogue with one another. Because I think then we can resolve. If not, it's going to be, I'm going to tell you what I think about you. I'm going to tell you what I think about your group. And it's going to end that way.
And even if we can't resolve, then at least, because some of the things we can't resolve, but we can at least build what you said about the understanding or the compassion, that we can have for each other, and then work to resolve, if we can, and at least to have the compassion and the respect and really growing the beloved community, growing in community. And you're so right about social media not being a place where that really, it does not, it's not built for that. It doesn't encourage that. It encourages the opposite. So it's so important to get together and really share and learn and listen.
Right. And I think too, following what my sister was saying here, asking those questions, the open-end questions, are so important because it
Yes.
shows that you're actively listening, giving them the eye contact, and then showing the facial expressions. I do care, and I want to know what's going on. You're reaching out to them,
Right.
trying to make a connection so you can get a better understanding of where this outburst or anger is coming from. So asking those open-end questions and actively listening, giving the eye contact, helps the process to begin to understanding what is transpiring with that individual.
So I think it's actually, as somebody was just saying recently, and I think it was when Karen and I were talking before the talking circle about tell me more. Tell me more. Just that open-ended listening, and then people will bring in their own reasonability, because a lot of times we know there's other parts to what's going on. And a lot, as we said, sometimes it's not even about the thing that's being argued about. There's other factors that are coming out in that way when it's not even about that.
Yeah, people sometimes, sorry for cutting you out, but
No,
I'm saying, like, you're absolutely right, because people bring their emotions into the conversation, right?
So they
And
had to
it can
fight
be
with
very
somebody,
strong.
right, that had nothing to do with anything, but I'm just mad, so hey, there it comes out. It just comes out. So this is with ourselves. So we can do all of these things, and we can try to do all these things. Now, how about when it is bigotry that our children are dealing with? So this, again, I'm going to say right up front, when I think you said, Michal, it depends on the situation. Well, of course, No, actually, I once gave somebody orientation to an office, and for every question, this was a long. Anyway, it was an office where there should have been some very definite answers, but when they asked me all these questions, for every question, my honest answer was, it depends. You know, because it depends. It always depends on the situation. So especially with this, like we said, it's very emotional about our children. But let us just try to take that, abstract situation. How do we help our children? You can bring an example or imagine an example or whatever you want to do to, just share some things that we could try and do to help our children deal with bigotry. So, Michal.
So, yeah, as you said, we experience different situations in our community, but there's examples of social media when, other youth shares, like, make very aggressive or violent comments, and they're not looking for a dialogue. And I think, like, this is something that I had to stress the importance to my children and other children in the community as I was running groups, that, again, it's not their fault, and they probably would not be able to have this conversation, unfortunately, because people throw things. People use all kind of terminology, repeat headlines or statements, and but what we can say is like, hey, would you like to sit down and talk to me? And I can maybe explain a few things. Maybe I can listen to you and see what's your side of it, rather than, throw a very aggressive statement or put me in a group of,
Right.
a certain type of. And then there's other types. There's, I find that isolation, rejection, sometimes in school, like, I'm not going to be your friend anymore. That's another type of bigotry that we were facing. And then we had to go home. We had to process it. Okay, what am I going to do about that? Again, the person that I am, and I think that curiosity is very important. And if this is a person that you really care about, I would reach out. I would say, hey, you've been a very good friend of mine. You may disagree with some of the things that maybe my group is doing, or would you like to sit down and talk about it? I really don't want to lose you as a friend. So we had to go through certain situations, like, who is someone that you want to invest and have this conversation? Maybe if you want me to interject and speak to parents. So we had this kind of situations as well. And I think empowering our youth, empowering our kids.
Sure.
Sometimes it's a good idea to speak up. Sometimes it's a good idea to reach a hand in peace and say, hey, let's sit down and talk. For me, this is the first option. And sometimes the option is just stay away.
Right.
Be safe and stay away from it. So I think, again, depends on the situation. But we want to, ultimately, I wish that we can always have a dialogue with the other child. And we did it before. I use a mediator in school as well.
Right, and that's another good point too. That's another possibility. Barbara?
So I wanted to back up a little bit. So, like, I'm sure a bunch of us maybe were raised in American public schools or attended American public schools as children. And then I had been teaching for too long. And so when I started teaching back in 2006, I was teaching elementary kiddos. And from my time as a child and then going through the system and then teaching the early 2000s, 2010s, the even, the concept of bigotry didn't exist. It was not an issue in the schools or with children. Yeah, kids make fun of kids. Bullying was always around. This is a problem that, has been around forever.
Right.
But the level of, just the way kids are singled out, or the language that they learn from adults of singling groups or genders or races, anything is and then to the level that it's being used, or kids are you know hurting one another, or being targeted, I feel has been it's on another level. And the reason I see that, or what the reason why it is such an issue, or no, the reason why I feel that it is now highlighted, that tells me that it is such an issue, is that now in schools we have these character building traits that go throughout the school, with from elementary to middle school to high school, where they focus on different character traits, whether that's kindness, whether that's respect, or I don't know. I'm sure you know them all.
Sure.
They
Right.
rotate these traits,
Right,
and they
right.
work on them with the kids, and
Right.
they go through ways. How can we exemplify this? How can we identify it? If I see you guys showing the character trait this month or this week, there's a reward involved, something like this. And we never had that growing up, and it's a good thing that they have this going, but it makes me sad, because that tells me that kids are not being taught this and at home, that these are not values that are no longer expected from the kids. Now we have to combat it. Now it's an issue. Now we have to, yes, there's always been, and there has been, elements of racism, or discrimination, that's not talked about, that hasn't been talked about. Bigotry, obviously, but I think because of the way so many adults act in the media, in all forms of
Right.
media,
Right.
in the news, everywhere, that it makes kids are seeing it, they're watching it, they watch it, they know that whether or not they say anything, they're absorbing it.
Sure.
You don't have to say anything, they soak it up,
Right.
and then they take it, it stays inside of them, and it takes a while for them to see the difference of what's right and wrong, so even though they may be taught what's right and wrong, but what they see at home, or what they're seeing on the media, when they see the way people treat one another, that sticks, and they're confused. My kids are very confused very often, when they see something on the news, that pops up on their phone. That's another thing. Kids have way too much exposure to news that we never had, and it's
Sure.
it's in their
Sure.
pocket. I mean, it's very sad, and it's very scary,
Right.
the things they see. And so, that they'll say, but, why did this person do this? Or why did this, anybody, celebrity, politician, anyone does something or says something that doesn't feel right, they're confused, and it's really hard to explain, why that person, is not nice and not kind. And then they're like, well, then why are they in power? It's like, well, I can't explain that either.
Oh,
It's really
That's
hard.
a whole nother
Yeah,
question.
that's a whole nother
Let's
thing.
not
It's
even
like,
start. We're not going to start with that one.
Well,
But, yeah.
but
Right,
from a parent's
right, right,
perspective, you
sure.
have to explain,
Of
and
course.
you have to
Of
try to
course.
explain. The kids have questions and they want to know. So
Sure.
it's hard. It's complicated. You wish it wasn't as complicated. We wish that things were better, and we didn't have to explain to our kids why people do what they do or say what they say. But it's tough.
Right.
It's really tough.
But those are some ways, that understanding and that listening, and that, looking for sometimes a mediator or something like that to help work through the problems. I want to jump in just because we did have. First let us go to Melissa, and then we have a comment. And I'll comment on that too.
Okay.
But yeah. So
I
what
can
would
I can
you
just
say?
think of an incident that recently took place a couple of years ago with my daughter in school, where she was called the N-word a couple of
Oh, boy.
times. And I'm a person who 9 times out of 10 is going to give you the benefit of the doubt.
Right.
once it was an accident. I spoke with the principal. Principal spoke with the student, and we thought we got the situation under control. But then it happened again. And I had to go back into the school this time, not pick up the phone and call,
Right.
and just let the principal know the seriousness of this. Um, they wouldn't identify the child or the parents, which I understood, but I just knew that I didn't want this to happen again.
Right.
I learned working with the developmental disabled years ago that sometimes you have to ignore the behavior, you know.
Right.
Um, to a certain degree. I'll put it that way.
Right.
Sometimes you have to ignore the behavior. But when it's reoccurring, when you see that, vicious cycle coming right back at you over and over again, then you're going to have to speak up, and try to resolve the issue. So you're going to have to engage appropriately when the time is right. You don't want to do it, as my sister said earlier, out of anger. Your emotions are up high, but you do look for that opportune time. May it be a meeting together with somebody who's of authority. It could possibly be, you could be in the supermarket, or there could be a car accident where you need to open up this dialogue and say, listen, this, our kids are not seeing eye to eye. Your son or daughter, I believe, was out of line. And that's how you start the conversation, by addressing the issue. You have to be honest.
Right.
Those are some hateful words. And if it just calls for my children to distance themselves from your child, then we just will have to do that. But I'm just letting you know, putting you on notice that I don't appreciate it, and I don't tolerate it.
So I think I want to emphasize what we said before. Of course, it always depends. What exactly did happen?
Right.
Who is it? How did it happen? What are the surrounding circumstances and all of that? So one of the things now, I was just talking with a young person and recommending them that they basically use nonviolent communication, if any of you have heard of that. But it's just a very simple, very systematic way of approaching where you sort of, there's a whole book on it which lays it all out, but it's really just a formula for dealing with, somebody's, what they've done to you, where you basically say, when somebody does this thing, whatever it was that just did, calls you a name, calls me that name. When somebody calls me that name, I feel whatever it is, angry, hurt, outraged, whatever. I feel that because of why ever, because it's not true, because it was unfounded, because I've only been, trying to be nice to everyone and respectful, why ever. And then the remedy. What would you like? Would you please not do it again, apologize, or, whatever it is you need. But just that when somebody, and the big thing is not saying when you did that thing, because it's the shame, blame. So if I feel shame because I knew I was wrong, then first I feel bad, and that's unbearable. So it's like, no, it's not my fault. It's your fault. So it's not when you do it. It's when anybody does it. It's not about you. This is about how I feel and how I need to deal with how I feel.
Correct.
Which is to ask you to not do it again or apologize or whatever I need. The other thing is that there are now we have a comment here. Sometimes it's okay to voice our disappointment with the type of human being they are and let them know what qualities they are missing. So it may be that if the first thing didn't work, or if there's been incident after incident where you use nonviolent communication or other things like that, and it still went like that, maybe that is the time to say, I know when I was in 4th grade, and somebody was beating up my brother, so I fought them back, and then 2 sixth grade boys were beating me up, and so I just cried and I said, "What?" They said, "Oh, little baby's crying." I said, "Well, I'm only crying because two sixth grade boys are beating up on a fourth grade girl. You know that you're pathetic or whatever I said, something like that. You know, and did they stop? Yes, they did." So sometimes, and also the other comment, I think at times it's okay to show our rage as well. And again, you know, we're talking about a lot of situations. We're talking very generally. So there may be times, now I think there are times when that might be the appropriate thing, especially if we're fighting back something that is danger, an actual danger, you know, where, you know, you're just going to use every tool at your disposal and there's no ability to ignore or something like that. Or, you know, and it's not black or white. It's just either all of our rage or none of our rage, you know. So there's lots of gray area in there. I also want to mention, just so that people know about it, and I'm sure lots of people do, especially teachers, the Dignity for All Students Act, that there are actual remedies in the school that are there for this. So the Dignity for All Students Act, there's for every school, they have to have a DASA, or Dignity for All Student Act officer that you can go to and say, "Hey, this just happened. We need your help with this situation." And it's in, and it was actually, I just saw today, one of the persons who helped us get it into the schools, restorative justice. Now, it's in theory a lot more than in practice, because the training, there's only been so much training, and it's a way of dealing, which is not the way that we find all around us in the world, right? So it doesn't come so quickly that restorative justice practices are used. But restorative justice practices are written into the Student Code of Conduct, and they include involving the community and the people involved and their supporters, right? So there may be parents or they're whatever, and getting the community to work on what happened, what was the damage done, how can the damage be repaired. So that's another thing that can happen. And that, you know, actually that we can use as well as our children can use as a way of dealing with these incidents and things when they come up.
That's why diversity is so important, that we recognize it, because if we start diversifying our children among other nationalities, religion, what have you,
Right.
you know, they can engage in conversations growing up. Okay, I can understand a lot better. Sometimes adults get in the way,
Right,
you
right.
know. But if our children start out young, you know, recognize, okay, I might not look like you, but we have the same interests, we play the same games, you know, so we can be friends because we have something in common. Just relating early in life, engaging in conversation, engaging in activities, exposing them to different cultures, different foods, you know, art, whatever the case is. I think that's very important. But when you start to exclude your child from another race or a type of person who may be disabled, then that you're really not helping the situation. My belief is you're not helping the situation. I think children, they're coming into the world so-called innocent, but you know,
Right.
and unfortunately, they don't know any better. So we have to teach them while they're young how to embrace other ethnicities, other religions, other beliefs, just to get a better understanding of who I'm living with and among. Though that's important. And so
Absolutely.
as they grow up and enter into the school system, may it be private school, public school, I was fortunate where I was able to attend private school. Um, so it was a blessing because I was able to interact with other nationalities, from kindergarten going all the way up to college. So engaging in different, and embracing other, um, religions or,
Right.
race is very important. I think starting, at a young age, because hopefully we could deplete a lot of the bigotry that we see today and a lot of the hateful words, the racism, that diversity is such a key point. I think that needs to be embraced.
So I think, we have you here, and I'm very grateful that we have all of you here. And you know, keep it to a fairly small group, but there's so many other ways that people get lumped and grouped and get bigotry. So thank you for mentioning disability. I know I could tell some stories. My sister was in a wheelchair all her life. So that was my older sister. Or, certainly LGBTQ children, or youth, as they're growing up, and those differences, or trans youth, there's all kinds of ways. And we had talked quite a bit about the grouping and the lumping. So that's bigotry right off the bat, just by definition. So, yeah, it's very important that back to what you said about, Michal, of all of us, being in diverse groups to talk about things, and where we see the underlying humanity, and so we can embrace the commonality and the differences, and learn from the differences, and start to back to point of view, putting ourselves in other people's shoes to sort of see, oh, well, that's how it feels to you. Oh, well, that's how the situation is from your perspective, so we all have these different perspectives. So I think we can move into, this is every bit, and we don't want to lose this part of it. How can we also help our community to deal, so that our children don't end up with all these issues, or, we're just talking about the climate and the things that are happening every day that we hear on the news and can't believe, or see it in social media. That's even more, that's where it really ratchets things up. So what are some of the things that we can do to help build more understanding, more of the beloved community, less bigotry, and more peace and harmony? So
You said so many important things that I just want to comment about what everybody said. But I think that I agree with Barbara that role modeling is really,
yes.
really important.
mm,
I mean, if it's coming from us, the parents, I think it's very important to role model this, right? I can't
Absolutely.
speak against a different person. I can't make a comment. Kids grow up,
right.
and we don't even notice that we make comments on people.
Right.
We are pointing out differences. Kids don't see color. Kids don't see differences. Kids
Right.
play together
Right.
until we are making them notice this person is different. Oh, or look at this, or look at that. So I would, what I would recommend every adult is to look inside ourselves and say, when we see the product of our kids and we say, why is my kids reacting like this or behaving like this? It's like, do I have preconceived notions? Do I discriminate against people? And notice our language, our body language and behaviors. So this is from us. I think every family needs to give this kind of example for the kids.
Right.
And to what you said, it's very important, together with what Vicky said, I think, and I tried to promote it, and you were talking about character education.
Yes.
If I could do one thing in school, it's like I would do, every school would be run is with restorative circles, right?
Yes,
When we all
yes.
sit in a circle, first thing in the morning, and we'll
Right.
look at each other's faces, not go to math and not go to English, not go to science, and say, hey, Melissa, you look a little sad today. how was your evening? What's going on today? And then, like, okay, just tell me how you feel. And then we start talking to each other. And
Right.
maybe if Barbara has something going on, it's like, oh, how can we help you? How can we support you? This is, I don't know if anybody had ever
Yes.
got training in
Yes.
restorative circles.
Yes,
So then
absolutely.
we take
Or
down
peace
walls.
circles.
Yes.
They're peace circles. They're
Yes.
just simple.
We start developing empathy towards one another.
Right.
And then bring walls. And to the
Right.
comment of this person who was talking about rage, every feeling counts.
Right.
Absolutely.
Right.
But we want to be able to use a dialogue. We want to be able to say, you know what, I'm really upset right now because this is how I feel. And or when we start with rage, there's nowhere else to go, right? But if we start with like, I'm really upset right now. I'm really disappointed. I'm really frustrated. And as a mental health counselor, unfortunately, we don't teach the words of emotion. So we go right to anger and we go right to rage. So when you go to anger, rage is the next one, and then where are you going to go from there? But the underlying emotions are probably disappointed, probably frustration, probably fear,
fear.
as you
Fear
said
is
at the
big.
beginning. So as far as us, I would role model, and as far as the school system that has a lot to work with, I would put all the money first in creating the circle so the kids can have a dialogue with one another.
Right. And more classrooms are doing that
Oh.
too. But we need
There
a
will
lot of
be-
it. All of us do.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
We start, as you said, start in elementary school and build it up.
Yeah. And really, I'm sorry, but it starts right at the mother's feet. You know,
Oh, yeah.
Sure.
Our children, mothers are our children's first teachers.
Right.
You know, so it really starts right from birth, even in the womb. You know, that's so important. And didn't mean to cut you
That's
off.
all right. No.
No, that's good.
Yeah.
No, I agree with everyone. I think you guys hit it on the head with being a role model. We have to. Finding opportunities for our kids to be exposed to other types of kids. I feel like sometimes we stay in our bubbles. We
Right.
do, in our
Right.
side of town or in our whatever
Right.
groups our kids are in,
Right.
or the school district, or where we work. Like it's easy to do that.
Right.
And it's harder to go out of our bubbles and expose, not only us but our kids to other people, other situations, other religions, other places around our town. So I think, I wish there were more. I'm sure there are, but I think having more opportunities for our kids to do more things outside of their bubble is really important. Exposing them to different everything, because kids can think very black and white and very like, well, this is how it is. Doesn't everyone live like we do? Doesn't everyone eat the food we eat, or live in the place we live, or have the school I have? So when they learn about how other people live, or how other people, whatever it is anyone else goes through, then they can reflect on, what they are. And so finding opportunities for that, being a role model, and I'm a big proponent. I know it's definitely easier said than done, but I'm a big proponent of traveling, if possible,
Sure.
for people to travel. I
Right.
think traveling, it changes things in you when you get to see how
Yes.
other people live.
Right.
Even if in your eyes they live better than you, it's still the norms, the expectations, the way topics they talk about, things they put importance on. It's so different than what we're used to. And when you travel and you see different places, even outside of Buffalo, like just anywhere, if you go and see it, you can see, and it humbles you, because you see, we're not always right. We don't always know the right thing. I think sometimes as an American, we tend to think we're right That's a lot.
Let's talk about that. That's a whole nother show
Yeah,
we
we-
can have. Yes.
we do have this idea that our way is the best way, and it's, I mean, as a parent,
We know better.
we know better. You guys listen to us, learn from us. We do have this feeling.
Arrogance.
Yeah, we do. We have it.
Exceptionalism, they
Yeah,
call it.
yeah.
American
and so,
exceptionalism.
it's there. It's alive, and it's something that our kids have, and
Right.
we need, when they see other places and they get to know other people, then they see it's not, we don't always know what we're talking about. And so yeah, I think exposing them, teaching them, being a role model, and when you see it, talk about it. I think
Right.
there's so many opportunities with movies, music, social media. If you see something that doesn't sit well with you, say something. Say, that's weird. That's odd. Why did that person say that? And then, so they know that not everything they see they have to take for face value. They can analyze what they're watching. They can listen to music or watch a TV show and say, that's weird, or that's off the way that person is treating that person. There's so many opportunities that you can bring up and say, this is not right. I think as a teacher, we have a lot of opportunities to, all the time, to, when we see stuff that's wrong, or kids come, they bring ideas from home. They come say what mom and dad were talking about, and why did my mom say this and my dad's, and you're like, whoa, I heard too much. But these things, we have many opportunities to stop them in their tracks and say, your mom and dad can say whatever they like. That's their business, But for example, in this space at school, that it's not appropriate, or your friends may not like it if they hear that, or you have to make sure that they understand that the school, we have expectations of how we're going to treat one another. So it's easier. Teachers deal with it all the time,
Sure.
but we try our best to make sure that they understand that.
Right.
So
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks, Barbara.
I'm going to go
Melissa?
with a quote that Malcolm X said, and I'm going to paraphrase it. He said something like, when a person uses profanity, it's only because he doesn't have the words to articulate himself. And that goes back to what my sister said over here. And I think that stems from reading, not exposing our children at a young age to books, introducing them to books, and helping them with their vocabulary, so they learn how to articulate themselves, how to express what they're feeling, matter if they're happy or sad or disappointed or angry, so we have to get back to the basics. Reading is fundamental,
Absolutely.
it's so essential. And I think of another quote from Martin Luther King. He says, we may have came on different boats, but we're all in the same boat now.
Right.
So we have to learn how to live with one another. We have to learn how to respect one another. We have to learn how to put our arm around our brother and sister and say, I'm here, let's do this together. I can't do it alone. You can't do it alone. You can't do it alone.
Right.
But if we work together, we can accomplish so much. We really can. And another thing, it's kind of slipping my mind real quick, the importance of just making sure that our children, like we had stated earlier about role modeling, we have to also teach parents to show
Oh, sure.
them, how to
Absolutely.
behave appropriately in front of their children, So we can't just always start with the children, but we definitely have to show parents
Right.
how to be appropriate as well.
You know what you've been making me think of? I love this. Albert Einstein, such a great man. And I read that he said once that children learn from their parents in three ways: by example, by example, and by example. So, I mean, that is where it's at. And the other thing is what I've heard and what all of you were saying, it's really a lot of it is about just educating ourselves. Not just, could be books, could be being in different groups of people, could be
Traveling.
traveling, yes, traveling, which is a big,
Yeah.
huge one. And so that educating ourselves, learning, how to, things that weren't taught, like you said, parents, we're our children's teachers, and teachers too are communicating, and how we are in our groups, in our societies, in our houses of worship, everywhere we go, just trying to be that person who helps to make it. And having shows like this show, which this you will, have it, you can share it. I'm so grateful for all three of you coming and doing this. We're all in this. We're all in the same
Same
boat.
boat, yeah.
We're all in this together,
Yeah.
and I couldn't be more grateful to each one of you. And
Can I just say something real quick?
well,
too?
we're
Okay,
just
okay,
yeah.
okay.
So it's been very wonderful to have you all. More to follow. We've got lots more to do, and we'll keep doing it together. So this is Talking Peace, and together we've been talking peace in truth and love.
Thank you, Vicky.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Thank you.
much.
I just wanted to say that
Yes.
when we walk out of here, if I ever see you on the streets again or in any setting, I hope that we can